My covenant, therefore thou and thy seed after thee, and to thy seed after thee in their generations. The covenant between myself and Israel forevermore will be the circumcision conducted by the people of Israel. As it is written in the Zohar, the circumcision of Israel will merit the return to their land, and they will banish their enemies. By the merit of the act, when the people of Israel are circumcised, they will be able to return to the land of Israel. And by the merit of the circumcision, they will be victorious over their enemies. It is mind-boggling to think that the land of Israel was barren close to 2,000 years. In the year 70 CE, the second temple was destroyed. Titus destroys Jerusalem. For 2,000 years, this land was desolate and barren. Today, after 50 years of statehood in Israel, we see a prosperous, independent country. Today, everyone wants the land of Israel. But how much agony did we endure? How much pain? Where were you in the past 2,000 years? Why were there only 6,000 Arabs here 100 years ago? Where were you? In the Torah portion of Berchatai, God defines the covenant between ourselves, His sons, and the Lord of hosts. God says, if, heaven forbid, I should exile you from the land of Israel, I will bring the land into desolation. The land will remain desolate and will return unto her son's return. She will wait until the Jews return to the land of Israel, and then the Holy One, blessed be He, will say to the land, 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 cease your exile. But ye, O mountains of Israel, ye shall shoot forth your branches, and yield your fruit to my people of Israel, for they are hand to come. As it is written in the book of Ezekiel, cease your exile. Now the people of Israel returning to the land, so you shall bear fruit. Lift up thine eyes round about and see. They all gather themselves together, they come up to thee. Thy son shall come from far, and thy daughters shall be nursed at thy side. Lift up thine eyes and see all gather themselves. They return to the land of Israel. By what right? By the merit of circumcision. November 29, 1947, the UN decided upon the partition of Israel into two states, a Jewish state and an Arab state. On the following day, November 30th, 1947, the 17th day of the Hebrew month of Kislev, the War of Independence erupts. The war between the Jews and the Arabs. The 17th of Kislev, in the Jewish year of 5608, marked the end of British mandate and the first steps of the young state of Israel. The border between us and the Arabs is called the Green Line. Why is it called the Green Line? For one reason. From a bird's eye view, one can differentiate between the places inhabited by Jews and those inhabited by Arabs. Everywhere Jews live, everything flourishes and is green. Wherever Arabs live, all is desert and barren land. In 1948, we returned to the land of Israel. We have the right to the land of Israel, but they also have the right to the land of Israel. They also performed the circumcision. He is also the son of Abraham, our forefather, as it is written in the Holy Zohar. In the commentary of the Torah portion of Era, for 400 years the angel of Ishmael stood opposite the angel of Yitzchak and asked God for blessed portion, like the one given to Yitzchak. It was Ishmael's right, for he was also circumcised. Ishmael came before God and said, see our daughters and look at their sons. Look at our prayers and look at their prayers. Look at us and look at them. And the Holy One, blessed be He, hears the angel Ishmael to the angel of Yitzchak. What did God do? He distanced between the children of Ishmael from the devotion to the heavens, and gave then a portion below in the Holy Land upon the merit of their circumcision. In the days to come, the children of Ishmael will rule the Holy Land for a long period of time, in a time when the land will be desolate and empty, with barren lands and malaria-infested swamps, and they will be the ones to delay the return of the children of Israel until the rights of the children of Ishmael have been exhausted. Omer, the Caliph, arrived in Jerusalem in the year 638 CE to fight the Byzantines. That was 1,360 years ago. 10 years later, the war came to an end. And as is promised by the chapters of Rebbe Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, in the end of days, the children of Ishmael will carry out 15 acts in the land of Israel. And these are the acts. They will measure the land with ropes. They will create autonomies. They will return lands. The roads will be desolate. And one more thing is written. They will fence in the breaches in the walls of the Holy Temple and will erect a building on the Temple Mount. This building was inaugurated in 648 CE. That year, the flag of Islam rose on the Temple Mount. The Holy Zohar promises them that the land of Israel for 1,300 years in return for the circumcision that they performed. 100 years for every year of circumcision, 1,300 years. The calculation is simple. 648 and 1,300 equals 1948. On the 5th of Iyar, the state of Israel was born. On the 5th of Iyar, 5608, long live the state of Israel. The 5th of Iyar is the 20th day of the counting of the sheaves, the counting of the Omer. The 20th day of the Omer in numerical form equals the numerical form of Israel defense. The foundation of Israel is hidden in the word Iyar, in an acrostic saying, I am God, your healer. Look for me, the Holy One, blessed be He, at the source of these things. In Iyar, the state of Israel was founded. On the 28th of Iyar, He hath shown His people the power of His works, that He may give them the heritage of the nations. On the 28th of Iyar, the Six-Day War broke out. On the 5th of Iyar, the state was founded, a free people in His own land. It was hard for us to accept the fact that the European Jews were led like sheep to slaughter. We dispelled the myth. A proud Jew, a fighter with wavy hair and a kibbutz hat, the Rock of Israel. We did God a favor and mentioned His name in the Declaration of Independence. What about thanking the Creator of the world? No thanks were offered. We have witnessed the biggest miracle in the world in the last 2,000 years. A people with so many different views, a nation that has been scattered all over the world returns to the land of Israel. After many days thou shalt be visited, in the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, a land that gathered many of its inhabitants in the aftermath of tragedies, persecutions, decrees. I gathered you out of many peoples upon the mountains of Israel, which have always been a waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. We received this land under the approval of the United Nations. As the Vilna Gaon writes, we will return to the land of Israel, and we will receive the land of Israel with approval of the kingdoms of the world, as we experienced during the days of Koresh. Did anyone thank the Creator of the world? No, no one did. But the Holy One so desires to redeem the people of Israel, as that is written. In the 6th voices, in the 7th wars, and at the end of the 7th, the Messiah, Son of David, will come. The first 7 years passed but didn't wake up. So God waits. 1952, a battle against us on the Syrian front. Israel's victorious. At the same time, there's a military coup in Egypt. Jamal Abdel Nasser takes over the regime. On October 29, 1956, the Sinai campaign begins. Only 4 years earlier, our first army officers graduated from the training course. The Sinai campaign, a great nation. The Egyptian Empire against Israel, a campaign that lasted exactly 6 days, and the entire Sinai desert is in our hands. A miracle that is hard to describe. Israel conquers the Sinai as on the verge of invading Egypt. Pressured by the United States and Europe, we declare a ceasefire, and then what happens? 5,000 Egyptians are taken prisoner by the Israeli side, among them pilots, officers, and combat fighters. How many Israelis are taken prisoner by Egypt? Only 5. How should one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight? A friend of mine went touring in Egypt. He went to have a cup of coffee at a coffee shop. The owner of the coffee shop wanted to compliment the young Israeli and said to him, I want to tell you a story. I fought against you during the Sinai campaign in the Kadesh Desert. I fought against you. My squadron attacked your soldiers. You were but a few and we were many. But all of a sudden there was a storm and a strong wind and dust came down from the heavens, and we all fell like dead bodies. I survived.